Hello, welcome to Decision 2018. My name is State Representative Robert Martwick, and I'm the host of this show, which is designed to provide judicial candidates with an opportunity to display their qualifications for judge. The show does not endorse any candidate, but is designed to give you, the viewer, an opportunity to become more informed about the candidates running for judicial office so that you can make better decisions. Thank you for joining us. Hello, and welcome to Decision 2018, a forum for judicial candidates. I am your host, State Representative Robert Martwick. This program is part of a series intended to provide judicial candidates with the opportunity to present their credentials for consideration. It does not endorse any candidate for elected office. Today we will have judicial candidates introduce themselves, we'll have a couple of question and answers, and hopefully this will better inform you about each candidate's qualifications for the bench. Today we are joined by Jack Haggerty. Jack, welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you so much.
Jack, let's talk about running for judge. Why is voting for judges important? What do you want the viewers to know about how important that is?
Well, really, there are a couple of reasons that voting for judges is critical, in my opinion. First, if you think about ballot order relative to candidates, they put judges last on the ballot, but the citizens generally will have most likely to have contact with a member of the judiciary, either themselves or a member of their families. That's one thing that's critical. The second thing I think that people ought to think about judges are really referees for our democracy, that they are charged with making sure the system that we have in place remains in place, and it remains in place in a fair and consistent manner.
What skills do you think are most important to be a good judge?
For me, I practiced law for a little over 27 years here in Chicago. I think the skills that make the most sense for me after spending many, many years in the practice of law are compassion, humility, and experience. And I think those are the three things that are critical. Compassion for people that come before you, humility so you don't have arrogance in your position, and experience that you've seen lots of different types of cases and know how to make right judgment calls in the right setting.
So there's a lot of judges running. We get to the bottom of that ballot and we see a lot of names. What unique qualities would you like the viewers to know that you have that make you, that are unique for you becoming a judge?
I'd say there are really two things for me that stand out. One is I have the highest bar ratings of all the bar ratings against my opponent. And secondly, I have the highest ethical and legal ratings by peers and members of the judiciary in my practice of law. So those are the things I think. I've been rated by others in a way I think that the voters can say is a fair way to assess a candidate.
I think that's very important. You know, I again, as voters walk into the booth and they look at this list of names, and sometimes, you know, how do you decide? Because judges, we don't talk about politics, but those ratings are very important, and that is a good way. And so you've said you have received the highest ratings available. Is that right?
Correct. For example, the Chicago Bar Association has rated me highly qualified, the highest possible rating that they provide. And many view that as the premier rating agency of the bar associations.
Outstanding. What else do you want voters to know about you?
So the last thing I would say to voters is roughly 3 years ago I had a spinal cord injury and really was paralyzed from the neck down, and that experience taught me incredible lessons, life lessons of humility and compassion. And while I have years of experience as a lawyer, the last 3 years of my experiences I think have given me great life lessons that I will bring to the bench in terms of compassion and humility.
That's outstanding. In our last few minutes here, please tell us where people can find more about you. Obviously, again, we want our voters to be well informed and do their research, and we only have a few minutes here. Is there a website? Is there places where they can read more about your experience and the things that you bring to the bench?
Sure, I have a really, I think, an easy website to recall. It's Jack for Judge, www.jackforjudge.com, and my punch number is 147. You can also look up the rating agencies, the Chicago Bar Association, for example, and find information out about my candidacy.
That's outstanding. Thank you, Jack, for taking the time to speak with us today and for taking the time to let our viewers know about your candidacy. We wish you the best in the upcoming election. To learn more about how, when, and where you can vote, go to www.elections.il.gov, info for voters. I think we're going to have something on the screen here that will show. And before we leave, one last question. Tell us something about you, hobbies or interests that voters might find interesting. What's unique about you?
I have spent the better part of the last 35 years as a co-host of one of the longest running ethnic radio programs in the country. It's called The Irish Hour, and I've been a host since 1979. The show has aired continuously since 1951. So,
a radio host for 35 years. So we're on different sides of the microphone this time.
We are. It's slightly uncomfortable for me to be in this seat.
Outstanding. Thank you for joining us on Decision 2018, a forum for judicial candidates. Thanks for watching. Hello. Today, my guest is Judge Claire Joyce Quish. Judge, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me, Rob.
Thanks. It's nice to have you here today. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us why you're running for judge.
So I was appointed by the Illinois Supreme Court to become a judge in June of 2016. So I started in traffic court, and now I handle civil cases under about $50,000. Car accident cases, breach of contract cases, those types of cases. I was a lawyer for 16 years before I was appointed to become a judge, and I love my job and want to keep it.
That's great, and that's interesting. So, you know, judges handle all sorts of matters, but what you mentioned, the two that you've been at, traffic court and small matters, that sounds like the place where most of us will probably come in contact with the judge.
Right. So even though judges are at the bottom of the ballot when you go to the voting booth, you're much more likely to come in contact with the judge than you are with anyone else at the top of the ballot, your state senators or governor. So whether you come in for a traffic matter, a criminal case, family law, divorce case, you're going to see a judge more likely than the other people. So it's very important to do your research and vote for qualified judicial candidates.
Yeah, I think that's one of the the interesting things as I go out and I talk to people. Everyone knows who's running for president. Not so many people know who's running for judge, and that makes it challenging. So I think that's it. Why else? I mean, anything else you could tell our listeners about why it's important to pay attention to who they're voting for judge?
So judges are a little different than other people on the ballot. We can't take positions on issues that might come in front of us. But I think what's important to know, and what I hope people know about me, is that I'm fair, I'm compassionate, I treat everyone who comes in front of me with respect and with dignity. Although I can't, side on either, advocate for either side of the people that come in front of me, I try hard to be prepared, to be ready for court, and to treat everyone who comes in front of me with respect.
That's great. Tell us about your background and the skills that you've achieved throughout your career that make you qualified for this position.
So I was a lawyer for almost 16 years before I was appointed to the bench in June of 2016. I clerked for a judge first, and then I worked at two small, mid-sized firms doing civil work, appellate practice, and also trial litigation, representing people in their professions, doctors, lawyers, architects, those kind of cases. I also taught appellate advocacy at Loyola for 2 semesters, a legal writing class. I also was a member of the Supreme Court's Committee for Character and Fitness, where I evaluated lawyers and bar people who are attempting to become lawyers in the state of Illinois. So assess their character and fitness to become lawyers in Illinois.
Well, that's pretty important. So you were already sort of sitting in judge of people who wanted to practice law.
Right, so we would evaluate the applicants, investigate them, and sometimes we'd have evidentiary hearings with the applicants and to determine whether they had the necessary character and fitness to practice in Illinois.
Well, that would be important. What are some important issues that judges handle?
So we handle issues, everything from family law, criminal matters, evictions, mortgage foreclosure, all those issues that people might come into contact with judges, traffic matters. We also handle more law division, bigger kind of amounts of money cases as well. So all different types of cases.
And have you submitted yourself to the process that a lot of judges go through, where you're rated by bar agencies and that?
Yes, so there are 12 different bar associations that evaluate judicial candidates. You fill out a very lengthy application. They do investigations and contact people you've had cases with, contact references, contact judges you've been in front of, and then you have an interview process. So I've gone through all 12 of those evaluations and been found qualified or recommended by each one of those evaluating bar associations.
All 12. And again, I think that's important, right? Because, as I say, voters walk into the booth and they say, what's the difference? And I think that that's something that is a difference, is looking to see who has been found qualified. And as you're telling us, all 12 have found you to be qualified or recommended.
Yes, and I have a complete list of that on my website as well.
Great. Where can we find more about you as you talk about your website?
So my website's www.electjudgequish.com, and that gives you information as to the endorsements that I've received from various local and community leaders and organizations, as well as the bar associations that found me qualified or recommended.
That's fantastic. So before we cut out, what would you like, what's one thing about you that voters would be interested to find out personally about you? Something unique. Hobbies, interests, something you like to do. What's your favorite type of food?
Favorite type of food? I would say Italian food would be my favorite type of food. I'm a big fan of desserts as well, I have to say.
Can't go wrong with desserts.
No.
Listen, Judge Claire Joyce Quish, thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. To learn more about how, when, and where you can vote, go to www.elections.il.gov. Thank you for joining us on Decision 2018, a forum for judicial candidates. My name is State Representative Robert Martwick, and I've had the pleasure of being your host today. Thank you for joining us. Hello. Today I am joined by Judge Cecilia Ann Horan. Judge, welcome for being on the program today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So, Judge, tell us a little bit about yourself and give the viewers a little bit of information about your background.
Sure. Thanks for having me. I was appointed to the bench about a year ago, a little more than a year ago, in January of 2017 by the Illinois Supreme Court. So I've been on the bench for a year. I sit in various courtrooms, including traffic, where I hear DUI trials. I sit in a civil non-jury room, so I hear cases like involving breach of contract and debtor-creditor issues, lessor-lessee issues, generally valued at less than $50,000. And sometimes I sit in a forcible entry and detainer courtroom. The colloquial term would be evictions courtroom. Before I was a lawyer, or before I was a judge, I was an attorney at the firm of Hinshaw and Culbertson. It's about a 500 attorney firm, big firm in downtown Chicago. And I did litigation of the type that I'm doing now. So it gave me a really wonderful background for the cases that I'm hearing now as a judge.
That's fantastic. Tell our listeners, I mean, we walk into the voting booth and we see all these names, and we're going to see these big offices and people who've been running these big television commercials, and we're going to know all those names. We get down to the judges, and we're like, sometimes, who are these people, right?
Right.
And so to the listeners out there, the viewers today, tell them why it's so important to pay attention to these judicial races.
A judge is probably one of the first types of elected officials most people are going to meet in their lives, whether it's traffic court because you're in court on a traffic ticket, an eviction, possibly a divorce. You might be in domestic relations court. So having well-qualified and excellent judges is critical, I think.
You made a good point. I mean, some of the courts that you're sitting in right now, those are the sorts of things that could really affect your life. If you are subject to an eviction, if you get a speeding ticket, who is sitting in judgment of your case.
That's right.
So you mentioned it's important to have qualified judges. Can you talk to us about your qualifications, and have you been reviewed by the bar agencies?
Oh, sure. There are about a dozen. There are 12 bar associations that evaluate the judicial candidates. They do an extensive vetting, a real investigation into your background. The application is long, 30 pages or something by the time I finally turned it in. And they do things like call your opponents, call your colleagues. They want to know all about you, your temperament, your ability, your skill level, your knowledge of the law, and then they issue evaluations. And so all 12 bar associations have found me to be either qualified or recommended to serve as a judge in Cook County.
Well, that's very good to know. I think that's important that when we make those decisions, as you said, that we're looking for those qualifications, and it's good to know that you have those.
Thank you.
What else about your past experience has helped prepare you for this role?
Well, I'm very active in the legal community. I'm the president of a bar association, the Lesbian and Gay Bar Association of Chicago, and that's a bar association. We've been around now for 30 years. We just had our 30th anniversary last summer. We do things, we plan social and networking events. We do continuing legal education programs for other lawyers. We have a mentoring program that's wonderful. We provide younger folks, students and young lawyers with scholarship opportunities and internships so that they can get their foot into their legal career. And it's a really wonderful organization. So I'm the president of that organization. I love the organization, and it allows me to interact with a lot of other bar association people. That, all the bar associations try to mix and mingle and put programming together. So it's a great way to get out and meet people and be active in the community.
Yeah, and I think that also, as a lawyer, I think that those service to those bar associations is something that is really helps you in this role as well, because it helps you with networking, getting to know other lawyers, and again, that sort of thing allows you to discuss issues that are important and be prepared. So I think that's important. So we've talked a lot about your qualifications and your experience and all that. What would viewers be interested to find out about you in your personal life that is unique, right? What would be something that you'd like them to know about you?
The Chicago Tribune asked a similar question, and the information I gave is that I'm a recreational musician, and I've played at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Really?
Yeah.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
What instrument do you play?
I'm a drummer.
You're a drummer. I'm a guitarist. Look at that.
Hey.
Yeah.
Form a band.
Well, before we leave today, where can our viewers find more out about you? Do you have a website?
I have a website, and it lists my endorsements, my bar ratings, all the information about me and my background. It's www.voteforceciliahoran.com. I hope that's right.
Okay. And I think we might be able to display it on the screen
no,
here.
it's voteforjudgehoran.com.
Voteforjudgehoran.com.
That's right.
That's important. And do we have a punch number that we're...
I'm at punch number 139.
Fantastic. So thank you very much for joining us here today, and thank you for giving our viewers an opportunity to learn more about you. To learn more about how and when and where you can vote, go to www.elections.il.gov. And to all of you out there, and Judge, thank you for joining us on Decision 2018.
Thank you for having me.
My name is Representative Robert Martwick, and I've been your host today. Thank you. Today, my guest is Judge Preston Jones, Jr. Judge, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell the viewers who you are. And
I am Judge Preston Jones, Jr. I was sworn in as a judge about 6 months ago by the Illinois Supreme Court, and now I'm fighting to keep my position in the March 20th primary.
Fantastic. So you were appointed by the Supreme Court. I think that's interesting. Tell us a little bit about that, how that happens.
Well, the Illinois Supreme Court goes through a pretty intense vetting process. When there's a vacancy, and the Illinois Supreme Court says we need to have a judge fill this vacancy so we can be about the business of doing justice, they look for candidates who fit their very strict criteria. And I put my name in, and after being vetted, I was appointed by the Illinois Supreme Court.
That's great. Why is it that, as our viewers walk into the voting booth, we see all of these names up there, and we get down to these judges, a lot of names,
Yes.
we don't always know who that is. Tell our viewers why it's important that they should inform themselves about who's running for judge.
Well, with all due respect to all of the different positions, governor, treasurer, the person who the average citizen is the most likely to come in contact with is a judge, whether it's in probate court, whether it's bankruptcy, whether or not it's at 26th in California, you're much more likely to come in contact with a judge. And it's to your benefit as a citizen to make sure that you're electing people who are going to be fair, compassionate, and understand and know the law.
Yeah, I tell that to people when I talk to them all the time, is that, judges have unique powers, right?
Yes.
And
yes.
it's important that we're careful about who we grant those powers to.
Absolutely.
What skills do you think are most important to being a good judge?
I got to tell you, I'm pretty clear about this, and I think it's temperament. I think we all can look up the law, we can turn our computers on and do the research and find out and know exactly what the statute says. Mm-hmm. It is someone who has the temperament to be patient, listen to everyone, listen to both sides, and make sure that everyone in the courtroom feels like they're being treated with dignity and respect.
Yeah, I think that is a very important. I'm an attorney myself, and I've sat before many judges, and I think that is something that we all in the legal community can agree is important, is temperament.
Yes.
Have you gone through the process of submitting to the bar associations for evaluations?
I have, and I'm very proud to say that I've been rated highly qualified by the Chicago Bar Association and been rated qualified or recommended by all of the bar associations. And in my particular race, I am the highest qualified candidate.
Wow. Tell us a little bit about your background, that before you became a judge. What
Yes.
were you doing in the legal community?
I was a public defender, a Cook County public defender for 23 years.
Wow.
A career public defender. I think I got sworn in November of 1994 to become a lawyer, and in December of 1994, I started in the public defender's office. I spent the last 13 years in the public defender's office in our homicide task force unit, where I did only murder cases, and when there was a death penalty, I only did death penalty cases.
It sounds like you spend a lot of time in a courtroom.
All my life was spent in the courtroom doing trials.
Well, I think that would probably be very helpful to a good skill translation to becoming a judge.
Yes, I hope so. Well, I believe so.
Good. What do you think in the last 6 months that you've been sitting there, what would you find is most challenging in being on the bench?
Well, honestly, I got to say, making a transition from being an advocate to a referee. Having spent 23 years on one side representing people, it takes a little transition to realize now that I'm not an advocate for one side or the other side. Now I'm a referee. Now I go from being a player to wearing the stripes and just having to do my best to just call it right down the middle. And that takes a little transition, but I think I'm catching on.
Yeah, it sure does. So one last question.
Yes.
What would our viewers find interesting about you on a personal level that they wouldn't know otherwise?
Well, I'm a father of four, including 3 boys. And a lot of what I do in my professional life is because of them. I want to be a good example to them. That's why I coach all of their sports teams, including my 13-year-old who's on the autism spectrum. I coach his special needs soccer team in the spring and in the fall. And when you do criminal cases for a living like I did for 23 years, it was really nice to go out on a spring or fall day and just watch kids play soccer and enjoy themselves. It was a way to kind of get me back to level, a way to cut down on my stress, and something I really enjoy, and I actually, when this campaign is over, I look forward to going back to doing.
Yeah, that does sound like a good way to bring everything back to center, right?
Yes, absolutely.
That's fantastic. Where can people find more about you as they go to research about judicial candidates? We want to encourage them to go find your website. Do you have one?
I do. It's www.prestonjonesforjudge.com. And on that website, you'll be able to look at my bar ratings and also the numerous people who have endorsed me, including Congressman Danny Davis, Congresswoman John Schakowsky. So you can see all that on my website.
Fantastic. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Of course, to learn more about how, when, and where you can vote, go to www.elections.il.gov. My name is State Representative Robert Martwick, and Judge Jones, and to all the viewers, I want to thank you for joining us on Decision 2018, a Forum for Judicial Candidates. Thank you.